The divine is not far away in some unreachable sky. It lives in the depths of your soul, waiting to be rediscovered. This statement resonates deeply with the philosophy of Carl Jung, who saw God not as an external entity but as an intimate presence, deeply rooted in the journey of self-discovery. For Jung, what many consider a traditional spiritual quest, the search for a higher power in temples or scriptures, is not truly the essence of spirituality. He believed that the divine is connected to our unconscious, manifesting through symbols, archetypes, and intuitive feelings that arise from the depths of our psyche. Ultimately, the true spiritual search does not lead us outward but forces us to look inward. The deepest journey we can make is not geographic but psychic. It is a journey of introspection, of confronting our most hidden truths, where answers about the meaning of life, the nature of being, and the presence of the divine are not obtained through dogma but through inner revelation. Every step we take in this journey of self-discovery is a step toward the divine that resides within us. Thus, the path of spirituality becomes a process of rediscovery, where we come face to face with the sacred that has always been present but often ignored. Each individual lives a unique story, an internal narrative that Jung called a personal myth. This personal myth is not just a series of random events that shape someone's life but a deeply symbolic story that reflects each person's search for meaning and connection with the divine. It's as if every human life is an archetypal journey, a heroic quest in which the protagonist faces challenges, uncovers hidden truths, and transforms along the way. The personal myth is the invisible structure that governs our existence, giving us clues about our spiritual and psychological mission. This Jungian concept is rooted in the idea that our psyche is not formed in isolation but is closely connected to the collective unconscious. This unconscious is like a reservoir of symbols, archetypes, and universal images that we all share, regardless of our culture or personal history. Thus, our individual story, the myth we live, is shaped by both our personal experiences and these ancestral narratives that inhabit our unconscious. God, therefore, manifests through these internal narratives, appearing not as an external and distant figure but as an integral part of our own psychological and spiritual journey. If we could see our lives as a mythical narrative, the divine would be present in every chapter. It would be there in the trials we face, in the moments of transformation, and in encounters that seem to hold deeper meaning. The personal myth offers us a key to understanding how the sacred permeates our lives in subtle and unexpected ways. It's not about searching for God in miraculous or grandiose events, but about recognizing the divine in the small moments of introspection and in the way our story unfolds. Carl Jung also suggested that each person experiences the sacred in a unique way, deeply influenced by their psychological type. For him, the different personality types that shape how we think, feel, and relate to the world also influence how we connect with the divine. Whether through the solitary introspection of introverts or the search for connection through relationships for extroverts, each personality finds God in its own way, through the filters of its psyche. Imagine an intuitive person who tends to see the world in symbolic and abstract terms. For them, the sacred may manifest in the nuances of life, in symbols and mysteries that inhabit dreams and the subtle signs of the universe. They may perceive the divine not in rigid rules or dogma but in poetic metaphors that connect existence. In contrast, a more rational person may feel God's presence in order, natural laws, and the rigor of logical principles governing the cosmos. For them, spirituality may be experienced as an alignment with the logical and universal structure of reality, seeing the divine as the force that maintains cohesion and harmony in the world. These different ways of experiencing the divine are part of the beauty and diversity of human spiritual experience. No way of feeling the sacred is superior or inferior. They are merely reflections of the variations of our own psychic nature. Thus, the search for the divine is not only about finding definitive answers but about realizing how our psychological inclinations shape the way we connect with the greater mystery of existence. Perhaps one of the deepest lessons Jung offers is the acceptance that spiritual experience is multiple and personal, and that the key to finding the sacred lies in knowing oneself. Spirituality, according to Carl Jung, is deeply marked by cycles of death and rebirth, reflecting an inner transformation process that he associated with alchemy. Just as the ancient alchemists sought to transmute base metals into gold, we in our spiritual journey are invited to transform aspects of ourselves that no longer serve our growth. These moments of transformation, often painful, are crucial for our inner evolution. They do not represent literal death but its symbolic death, the end of an old identity, the dissolution of patterns that no longer resonate with our authentic self. These experiences of death may arise from personal crises such as grief, abrupt changes, or facing great losses. In each of these phases, life seems to challenge us to leave behind who we were, to make room for something new. However, this process of spiritual rebirth does not happen passively. It requires courage to face suffering and walk through the darkness, knowing that on the other side lies the promise of deep renewal. Just as the alchemist worked with patience and dedication to purify matter, we too are called to purify our soul, transforming our shadows into wisdom. It is in this process of rebirth that the divine reveals itself most intensely. When we strip away the old layers of our identity, those built by others' expectations, by the illusions of the ego, we begin to touch our truest essence, where the divine resides. With each rebirth, we become more authentic, closer to our divine spark. In this sense, spiritual crises are not an end but a portal to a life more connected to the sacred. The process of individuation for Carl Jung is the journey toward becoming who we truly are in all our totality. This path is not only psychological but also profoundly spiritual. Individuation invites us to integrate all aspects of our being, the ones we embrace and the ones we deny, until we reach a state of wholeness. In this process of integration, we discover that the divine is not outside us, waiting to be found in some distant place, but within us as a fundamental part of our being. Along this journey of individuation, we are challenged to confront our shadow, those parts of ourselves that we prefer to hide or ignore. Integrating this shadow is essential to becoming whole, as it is often where our greatest potential resides. Jung believed that without accepting our darker parts, we would never be able to comprehend the true meaning of our existence or find the divine that lives within us. The encounter with the self, our deepest essence, happens when we can bring together all facets of our psyche, both the light and the shadow. This process of individuation is, therefore, an invitation to internal reconciliation, to the acceptance of who we truly are, without the masks we wear for the outside world. As we deepen our self-knowledge, we realize that the search for the divine is not a quest for the perfect or the idealized, but for the truth of our being. To find the divine is to discover that within us lies a presence that transcends time, space, and the roles we play in daily life. It is the recognition that the divine spark is the foundation of our most authentic self, waiting to be revealed and lived. Dreams, for Carl Jung, are one of the most direct languages of the unconscious, and through them the divine often manifests in our lives. Jung believed that dreams function as a portal, a subtle communication between the conscious mind and the unconscious, where the sacred uses symbols and archetypes to convey profound messages. Unlike the conscious mind, which seeks order and logic, the unconscious speaks in metaphors and images, and dreams thus become an essential vehicle for self-knowledge and understanding of our connection with the divine. In many spiritual traditions, dreams have always been seen as a form of revelation, a way to access hidden truths and receive guidance from the spiritual world. For Jung, dreams serve a similar purpose but with an emphasis on the psychic nature of the divine. They are like mirrors that show us the parts of ourselves that remain hidden or rejected, offering us the chance to integrate these aspects and thus move toward individuation. In dreams, the divine may appear as a guide, a symbol of transformation, or even in situations that seem challenging or disturbing but carry within them the potential to awaken a new understanding of oneself. Paying attention to dreams, therefore, is a way to dialogue with the sacred, to hear what our unconscious, and the divine within it, has to tell us. Often, the answers we seek in waking life, in our existential anxieties and questions, are already present in our dreams, waiting only to be interpreted and recognized. When we accept that the divine speaks through symbols that transcend logic and the limits of rationality, we open the door to a deeper and more intimate connection with the mystery of life and the sacred that permeates our psyche. For Carl Jung, the divine is not composed only of light, goodness, or unconditional love. The sacred, like human nature, also encompasses darkness, chaos, and the shadow. This understanding of God as a dual force that contains both light and darkness reflects Jung's profound view of human nature and reality itself. Just as we are composed of luminous and shadowy aspects, the divine within us also contains this duality. Jung believed that the true spiritual journey requires us to integrate both our light and our shadow. The shadow, in his view, is not an enemy to be destroyed but an essential part of our being that needs to be embraced and understood. It is in the shadow that we find parts of ourselves that we reject, fear, or deny. And it is precisely in these parts that much of our power, our authenticity, and our potential for transformation reside. Just as the divine encompasses both chaos and creation, we too, to achieve wholeness, must accept that the complete self is one that embraces all its facets. The shadow, therefore, should not be feared but seen as an ally in the individuation process. Accepting our shadowy parts is a fundamental step toward discovering the divine within us, for the sacred is not a force that exists only in purity and perfection. On the contrary, the divine is present even in the most challenging aspects of life and psyche, those that bring us into contact with suffering, loss, and symbolic death. Recognizing that God, like us, also contains shadow is to accept life in its fullness and understand that the path to the divine does not pass only through light but through confronting and integrating our own darkness. Within the psyche, Carl Jung identified the presence of complementary polarities that need to be integrated to achieve spiritual wholeness. In men, there is the anima, representing the feminine principle. In women, the animus, embodying the masculine principle. These opposing energies are fundamental parts of our psyche and play a crucial role in the individuation journey, as they connect us to what Jung called the divine feminine and divine masculine. These polarities, however, are not tied to biological gender but are expressions of the balance each human being needs to find within themselves. The divine feminine, represented by the anima, is associated with receptivity, intuition, and care, while the divine masculine or animus is connected to reason, action, and structure. Both are essential for a full and spiritually rich life. However, society often conditions individuals to value one principle over the other, leading to psychic and spiritual fragmentation. Jung's invitation is for each of us to embrace and integrate these aspects, recognizing that within every human being there is a sacred dance between these energies. Integrating the divine feminine in men and the divine masculine in women does not mean abandoning one's identity but expanding the ability to be in harmony with oneself and the world. When these internal polarities are recognized and honored, we reach a state of spiritual balance that reflects the totality of existence. Through this integration, we draw closer to the divine, which is neither exclusively masculine nor feminine but a unified expression of both. Embracing the divine feminine within us allows the sacred to flow in its most creative and intuitive forms, opening the way to a deeper connection with the mystery of life. The integration of these polarities is a vital step toward finding spiritual wholeness, and along this journey, we discover that the divine is, in fact, the harmonious union of all parts of our being. The sacred does not manifest only in great spiritual events or elaborate rituals but also in the small things of everyday life, in the simplest experiences of life. Carl Jung believed that the divine is present in every moment, around us, waiting to be recognized. Often, when we focus solely on grand spiritual experiences, we miss the chance to perceive the sacred in the most ordinary interactions, in moments of silence, or in the subtle beauties of nature. Spirituality, in this way, does not need to be a distant path or separate from daily life. It can be lived in every gesture, in every breath. When we look closely, we realize that the divine is in the small things we sometimes overlook. It is in the sound of the wind, the texture of the earth, the smile of a friend, or even in the simple act of contemplating the sunlight at dawn. These moments, which often go unnoticed in the rush of daily life, carry a silent sacredness, an opportunity for deep connection with the mystery that permeates all existence. Jung encourages us to pay attention to these subtleties, to cultivate a more attentive and contemplative gaze, for it is in this state of presence that we open ourselves to perceive divinity in its most intimate form. Recognizing the divine in everyday life is a way of transforming how we live. When we realize that each moment is potentially a manifestation of the sacred, our life becomes filled with meaning. It is no longer necessary to wait for an extraordinary event to feel the presence of God. We can find the sacred in the simplest routines, in the silence of a morning, in the taste of a lovingly prepared meal. This realization helps us understand that spirituality is intertwined with daily life and that every moment offers the opportunity for a deeper connection with the divine. Thus, the sacred is wherever we place our attention. By slowing down and allowing ourselves to be fully present, we begin to see divinity reflected in every detail around us. And it is precisely in these small gestures, in moments of simplicity, that we discover a spirituality that is closer, more accessible, and profoundly transformative. Rites of passage are decisive moments in our lives, both psychologically and spiritually. Carl Jung saw these milestones as important phases that reflect the inner journey of transformation. These are transitional periods that, while they may involve pain, uncertainty, or even loss, represent essential stages in the development of the psyche and our connection with the divine. These rites are not limited to formal religious ceremonies but can be any event that leads us to cross a significant threshold. Moments that push us to a new level of consciousness and understanding of ourselves and the world. Throughout life, we all go through different types of rites of passage. The transition to adulthood, for example, marks the abandonment of childhood protections and the beginning of a new phase of responsibility and individuation. Grieving the loss of a loved one is another deep rite of passage, as it confronts us with life's impermanence and forces us to re-evaluate our relationship with the spiritual world and the meaning of existence. Jung understood that these moments of transition, however challenging they might be, were opportunities for profound spiritual growth. They open us to the possibility of rebirth, of rebuilding ourselves in a way that is more connected to our essence and to the divine. These rites are like portals, moments when we cross from one state of being to another. As we pass through these portals, we leave behind old parts of ourselves and emerge renewed, with a broader and more mature understanding of who we are and what the sacred means in our lives. In Jung's spiritual alchemy, these transitions are like the fire that purifies and transforms raw material into gold. What seemed like destruction or an end is actually the beginning of a new cycle, a new stage in the journey of individuation. When reflecting on our own rites of passage, it is important to recognize them as sacred moments of transformation. These milestones bring us closer to the divine, challenging us to grow, change, and connect more deeply with the spiritual essence that lives within us. Each of us has our own rites, our own crises, and moments of rebirth, and it is in this continuous cycle of symbolic death and rebirth that the divine guides us toward a deeper understanding of life and ourselves. Carl Jung reminds us that the true spiritual journey is ultimately a journey of self-knowledge. The divine that many of us seek, sometimes with so much effort and in distant places, is actually within us. It is not necessary to travel to temples or follow strict traditions to find God, for the sacred resides in the depths of our own soul. However, this journey inward is not always easy. It requires courage to face our shadows, patience to decipher the mysteries of our dreams, and openness to accept both our light and our darkness. The spiritual quest is both a personal and a universal journey. While the symbols and archetypes we encounter along the way are shared by humanity, the way we experience them is uniquely our own. Each person has their own personal myth, their sacred narrative, their way of experiencing the divine. And in this diversity of spiritual paths, there is a common truth. The sacred is not an external force that separates us from ourselves, but an inner presence that unites us with the whole. As we delve deeper into the inner journey, we realize that the divine is not a distant entity but an expression of our own wholeness. This understanding, which arises through the process of individuation, leads us to a state of integration where all parts of ourselves, the light and the shadow, the feminine and the masculine, the conscious and the unconscious, are aligned. When we reach this state, we no longer feel separated from the divine because we realize that the very fabric of our existence is divine. Jung's invitation is clear. We must venture courageously on this journey of self-discovery, face the parts of ourselves we avoid, and embrace the sacred that dwells in our essence. It's not about searching for something external but rediscovering what has always been within us. Thus, the spiritual journey becomes a path of returning to our center, to our deepest truth, where we find the light of the divine, not as something out of reach, but as an innate part of who we are. Within you, in the depths of your soul, lies the divine. All you need to do is embark on this journey of self-knowledge, facing your shadows and embracing your light. Every step on this journey brings you closer to the most essential truth, that the sacred already lives within you, waiting to be rediscovered. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring content about self-knowledge, spirituality, and the inner journey. See you next time.